The morning started like any other Tuesday for Dr. Maya Richardson. She woke up at 5:30, went for her usual jog around the neighborhood and checked her emails over coffee. Today was special, though. She had a medical conference in Miami, and for the first time in her 20-year career, she had booked a private jet. It wasn't about luxury, it was about time. As the head of cardiac surgery at Princeton Medical Center, every hour mattered. This conference was crucial. She was presenting research that could change how doctors treat heart attacks in emergency rooms across the country. Maya had invited 3 of her colleagues to join her. They had split the cost of the charter, $35,000 total. It seemed expensive, but when she calculated the time they would save, the ability to review their presentation during the flight, and the convenience of arriving refreshed instead of exhausted from commercial travel, it made sense. Her colleagues were excited. None of them had ever flown private before either. She arrived at the private terminal at Teterboro Airport in New Jersey around 10 in the morning. The building was small but elegant, nothing like the chaos of a regular airport. Marble floors, leather couches, and soft classical music playing in the background. There were only a handful of other travelers there, all dressed in expensive suits and designer clothes. Maya wore a simple navy blazer and comfortable slacks. Professional but practical. She walked up to the desk with her phone in hand, ready to show her booking confirmation. The man behind the counter looked up at her. His name tag read Derek. He was in his mid-30s, clean-cut, with the kind of smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Good morning," Maya said warmly. "I have a charter booked for 10:45 to Miami. Dr. Maya Richardson." Derek glanced at his computer screen, then back at her. His smile faded slightly. "Richardson?" he repeated as if he hadn't heard her correctly. "Yes, that's right." She pulled up her confirmation email and turned her phone toward him. "Here's my booking number." He barely looked at it. Instead, he started typing on his keyboard, his fingers moving slowly, deliberately. The silence stretched out uncomfortably. Maya shifted her weight from one foot to the other. Something felt off, but she couldn't quite place what it was. "Can I see your ID?" Derek asked, his tone flat. "Of course." She handed him her driver's license. He studied it for what seemed like an unnecessarily long time, comparing her face to the photo multiple times. "And do you have the credit card you used to book this?" Maya felt a small knot forming in her stomach. "Sure." She pulled out her credit card and placed it on the counter. Derek picked it up, examined it, then set it down without swiping it or doing anything with it. "Ma'am, I'm going to need to verify some information. Can you wait here for a moment?" "Is there a problem?" Maya asked, trying to keep her voice calm. "Just need to check something. Please have a seat." She moved to one of the leather couches, confused but trying not to jump to conclusions. Maybe there was a computer glitch. Maybe her payment hadn't gone through properly. She checked her banking app. No, the charge had cleared 5 days ago. Everything was in order. 10 minutes passed. Then 15. Maya checked her watch repeatedly. Her colleagues would be arriving soon. The flight was supposed to leave in less than 30 minutes. She stood up and walked back to the desk. "Excuse me, is everything okay? Our flight leaves soon." Derek didn't look up from his computer. "Still checking, ma'am." "Checking what exactly?" "I have all my documentation. The payment went through." "What's the issue?" "We just need to verify that you actually booked this flight." The words hit her like a slap. "I'm standing here with my ID, my credit card, and my confirmation email." "What else do you need to verify?" Before Derek could answer, the door opened and her 3 colleagues walked in. Dr. Patterson, Dr. Liu, and Dr. Stevens all chatting excitedly about the flight. They were all white, all men, and the moment they approached the desk, Derek's entire demeanor changed. "Good morning, gentlemen." His smile was back, bright and genuine. "You must be the rest of the Richardson party." "That's us," Dr. Patterson said cheerfully, then noticed Maya standing off to the side looking tense. "Hey Maya, everything all right?" Before she could answer, Derek started processing their check-in. He barely glanced at their IDs. Didn't ask for credit cards. Didn't question anything. Within 2 minutes, he was handing them their boarding passes and gesturing toward the tarmac. "Your aircraft is ready. Right through those doors." "Wait," Maya said, stepping forward. "What about me? You still haven't told me what the problem is." Derek's jaw tightened. "Ma'am, I told you we're still verifying your information." Dr. Stevens frowned. "What do you mean verifying?" "She booked the whole flight. We're her guests." "I understand that, sir, but I need to follow protocol." Protocol for what? Dr. Liu asked, his voice rising slightly. She's the one who organized everything. She's the primary passenger. Derek's face was reddening now. Gentlemen, I'm going to have to ask you to board the aircraft. Ma'am, I need you to step aside. That's when Maya felt it. That familiar, sickening feeling she had experienced too many times in her life. The feeling of being seen as suspicious simply for existing. For being a black woman in a space where someone had decided she didn't belong. I want to speak to your manager, Maya said firmly. My manager isn't available right now. Then I want to speak to whoever is in charge of this terminal. Derek picked up his phone, but he didn't call a manager. He called security. Within minutes, 2 security officers appeared. Maya's colleagues were protesting loudly now, their voices echoing through the small terminal. Other passengers were staring. Someone in the corner had their phone out, pointing it in their direction. Officers, this woman is causing a disturbance and refusing to follow instructions, Derek said calmly, as if he hadn't just spent the last 20 minutes treating a paying customer like a criminal. That's not true, Dr. Patterson shouted. She's done nothing wrong. This is discrimination, plain and simple. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to board your aircraft or you'll miss your departure window, one of the security officers said. Maya felt tears of frustration burning behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She stood straight, her voice steady. I am Dr. Maya Richardson. I am a cardiac surgeon. I paid for this flight. I have done nothing wrong, and I am not going anywhere until someone explains to me why I am being treated this way. But it didn't matter. The security officers each took one of her arms and began escorting her away from the desk, away from the jet, away from her colleagues who were now shouting and refusing to board without her. As they led her toward the exit, Maya looked back one last time. Derek was already checking in another passenger, a white woman in a fur coat, smiling and chatting as if nothing had happened at all. The glass doors closed behind her. She stood on the sidewalk outside the terminal, shaking with anger and humiliation. Her colleagues came out moments later, having refused to fly without her. They were furious, apologizing, trying to figure out what to do next. But Maya was already thinking ahead. This wasn't just about a missed flight anymore. This was about something much bigger, and she wasn't going to let it go. Maya sat in her car in the airport parking lot, her hand still trembling on the steering wheel. Her colleagues had offered to drive her home, but she needed to be alone. She needed to process what had just happened. In all her years as a doctor, through all the challenges she had faced, she had never felt quite this humiliated. Not like this, not in front of her peers, not when she had done absolutely nothing wrong. Her phone buzzed. It was Dr. Liu. Maya, I recorded some of it. From inside the terminal. Do you want me to send it to you? She stared at the message for a long moment. Part of her wanted to forget the whole thing. To move on, to not make waves. That's what she had been taught growing up. Keep your head down. Work twice as hard. Don't give them a reason to say you're difficult. But another part of her, the part that was exhausted from decades of swallowing her anger, wanted the world to see what had happened. Send it, she typed back. The video arrived seconds later. She watched it once, then twice. Even seeing it from the outside made her stomach turn. There she was, calm and professional, showing her documents. And there was Derek, treating her like she was trying to commit fraud. The contrast when her colleagues walked in was even more stark on video. The way his whole face lit up. The way he processed them in seconds without a single question. Her phone rang. It was her younger brother, Tony. Maya, you're not going to believe this. Some woman posted a video of what happened to you. It's blowing up on Twitter. What? What woman? I don't know, but she was in the terminal. She filmed the whole thing from when you first walked up to the counter until security took you out. Maya, it's already got like 50,000 views and it's only been up for an hour. Maya's heart started racing. She opened Twitter and searched for Teterboro Airport. There it was. The video was even clearer than the one Dr. Liu had taken. You could hear everything. Derek's suspicious tone, her patient explanations, the way he smiled at her white colleagues, the way he called security on her for literally no reason. The comments were pouring in, thousands of them. People were outraged. People were sharing their own stories. The hashtag #FlyingWhileBlack was trending. Maya read through the comments, her emotions swinging between validation and exhaustion. At least people believed her. At least they could see she wasn't crazy, wasn't overreacting. By that evening, the video had 2 million views. By the next morning, 12 million. Maya's phone wouldn't stop ringing. News outlets wanted interviews. Her hospital's PR department called 3 times. Her mother called crying, having seen her daughter's humiliation broadcast across the internet. Elite Sky Services, the charter company, released a statement at noon. Maya read it on her laptop while drinking her 3rd cup of coffee. We are aware of an incident that occurred at our Teterboro location yesterday. We take all allegations seriously and are conducting a thorough internal investigation. Elite Sky Services is committed to providing excellent service to all our clients. The statement made her furious. It was so corporate, so empty. An incident, like it was some vague occurrence rather than blatant discrimination. Allegations, like there wasn't video proof watched by millions of people, but the internet wasn't buying it either. The company's social media pages were flooded with angry comments. People were posting screenshots of the statement with responses like, "Do better," and "This is not an apology," and "We see you." Someone had already started a petition calling for the company to be investigated. Then the news broke that Maya wasn't just any passenger. A journalist had done their homework. Articles started appearing with headlines like, "Discriminated woman is renowned heart surgeon," and "Doctor who saves lives daily denied basic respect." They included her credentials. Harvard Medical School, over 3,000 successful surgeries, volunteer work at free clinics, awards from medical associations. Her professional photo appeared next to the grainy footage of her being escorted out by security. Maya's colleagues were doing interviews too, telling anyone who would listen what they had witnessed. Dr. Patterson went on the local news. "I've known Maya for 8 years. She is one of the finest doctors I have ever worked with. What happened to her was disgusting, and we all saw it with our own eyes. There is no other explanation except racism." On day 3, something unexpected happened. More people started coming forward. A black businessman named Trevor posted his own story about Elite Sky Services. He had booked a flight 6 months ago and was questioned for 45 minutes, asked to provide bank statements, and eventually told the flight was canceled due to maintenance issues. He later found out the flight went out as scheduled with other passengers. Then, a black woman named Nicole shared her experience. She had been told she couldn't board because her name didn't match the booking, even though it did. She was asked if someone else had made the reservation for her, as if she couldn't afford it herself. Then another, and another. 6 people total, all with similar stories. All black, all treated with suspicion and disrespect. The pattern was impossible to ignore. A reporter from a major news network got in touch with Maya. "Dr. Richardson, we'd like to do a full segment on this. But I want you to know we've been digging deeper. There might be more to this story than just one employee." "What do you mean?" Maya asked. "I mean, we have a source inside the company, someone who's been there for 3 years and is tired of what they've seen. They're willing to talk." The segment aired on primetime television. The whistleblower, whose face was hidden and voice disguised, revealed that Derek had been complained about before. Multiple times. Black clients had called to report his behavior. Some had even demanded refunds, but nothing had been done. The company had kept him on. When asked why, the whistleblower said something that made Maya's blood run cold. Derek's uncle is one of the major investors in Elite Sky Services. He owns about 20% of the company. Management knew about the complaints, but they buried them. They didn't want to upset the family connection. The whistleblower also shared internal emails. In one of them, Derek had forwarded a booking from a client with an African-sounding name and wrote to a colleague, "Better keep an eye on this one. Sounds like fraud risk to me." In another, he made a joke about rappers and drug dealers using private jets. The emails were racist, unprofessional, and proved this wasn't just about one bad day. This was who he was. The news anchor asked Maya for her response. She had agreed to appear via video call. She sat in her home office, the same place where she reviewed patient files and saved lives through her research. She looked tired but dignified. "I'm not surprised," she said quietly, "because this is what so many black people experience every single day. We're questioned, we're suspected, we're treated like we don't belong in spaces we've paid to be in, worked to be in, earned the right to be in. The only difference is this time someone filmed it. This time people couldn't look away." The reporter leaned forward. What do you want to happen now? Maya didn't hesitate. I want accountability. Real accountability, not just for Derek, but for the company that protected him, that enabled him, that looked at complaints from black customers and decided those complaints didn't matter as much as keeping an investor's nephew happy. Are you considering legal action? I'm considering every option available to me. Because this isn't just about me anymore. It's about every person who came forward with their story. It's about every person who didn't come forward because they thought no one would believe them. By the end of the week, Elite Sky Services was in crisis mode. Their stock had dropped 40%. Major corporations were publicly canceling their contracts. The FAA announced they were opening an investigation. Derek had been fired, but people wanted to know why it took a viral video for that to happen. Maya received a call from a lawyer named Thomas Blackwell. He was one of the top civil rights attorneys in the country. Dr. Richardson, I'd like to represent you. No charge unless we win, and I think we're going to win. Maya looked out her window at the trees in her backyard, thinking about everything that had happened in just 1 week. Her life had been turned upside down. But maybe, just maybe, something good could come from all of this. Let's do it, she said. The lawsuit was filed on a Monday morning. Maya stood beside Thomas Blackwell on the courthouse steps as cameras flashed and reporters shouted questions. She had worn her white doctor's coat over her dress. Thomas had suggested it. Let them see who you are, he had said. Let them see what you do every day while people like Derek judge you for the color of your skin. The lawsuit named Elite Sky Services, Derek personally, and 3 company executives who had allegedly ignored previous discrimination complaints. Thomas was asking for $12 million in damages. But more than the money, the suit demanded policy changes, mandatory anti-racism training, and independent oversight of how the company handled complaints. This case is about more than one woman's experience, Thomas told the crowd of reporters. This is about a pattern of discrimination that was allowed to flourish because the people in power chose profit and personal relationships over basic human decency. Maya added her own words. I'm a doctor. I spend my days trying to save lives. All I wanted was to get on a plane I paid for so I could teach other doctors how to save more lives. Instead, I was treated like a criminal. No one should ever experience what I experienced. The video of her statement was shared millions of times, but not everyone was supportive. Maya started receiving hate mail. People told her she was playing the race card, that she was just trying to get money, that she was destroying a man's life over nothing. Some messages were even more vicious, filled with slurs and threats. Her hospital had to increase security. The police advised her to vary her daily routine, but support came from unexpected places too. Celebrities shared her story. Other doctors posted messages of solidarity. A GoFundMe appeared to help with legal costs even though Thomas wasn't charging her. She had the donations redirected to organizations fighting discrimination. 2 weeks into the legal proceedings, Maya received a phone call that changed everything. The number was local but unfamiliar. She almost didn't answer. Dr. Richardson? The voice was older, female, shaking slightly. My name is Catherine Morrison. I'm Derek's mother. Please don't hang up. Maya's first instinct was to do exactly that. But something in the woman's voice stopped her. What do you want? I want to apologize. I want you to know that I am so sorry for what my son did to you. I saw the video. I've watched it probably 100 times and each time I feel more ashamed. Maya sat down slowly on her couch. This was the last thing she had expected. Why are you calling me? Because you deserve an apology from someone in our family. 'Cause Derek won't do it, not really. His lawyers told him to make that video apology, but it wasn't real. I know my son. I raised him better than this, Dr. Richardson. I really did. There was genuine pain in Catherine's voice. Maya found herself listening despite her anger. Then what happened to him? Catherine was quiet for a moment. His divorce 5 years ago, it broke something in him. He was angry, lost. He started spending all his time online, in these forums and chat groups. I didn't know what they were at first. By the time I realized he was already too far gone, they filled his head with hate. They told him he was a victim. They gave him people to blame for everything wrong in his life. That's not an excuse, Maya said firmly. I know, I'm not making excuses. I'm just trying to explain how my sweet boy turned into someone I barely recognize. Someone who could do what he did to you. Catherine's voice broke. I've lost my son, Dr. Richardson. Not physically, but I've lost who he used to be. And I can't get him back. Maya felt an unexpected wave of emotion. She had been so focused on her own pain that she hadn't thought about the other victims of hate, the families who watched their loved ones get radicalized, the mothers who grieved for children who were still alive but had become strangers. Mrs. Morrison, I appreciate your call. I really do. But I don't know what you want me to say. I don't want you to say anything. I just wanted you to hear from someone in our family that we don't all think like him, that some of us are horrified. And if there's anything I can do to help your case, anything at all, I will do it. Maya leaned back against the couch cushions. Why would you help me? He's your son. Because what he did was wrong. Because the company that employed him protected him when they should have stopped him. Because maybe if they had fired him the first time someone complained, he wouldn't be where he is now. Maybe he would have gotten help. Maybe he would have woken up. Catherine paused. I'm a retired schoolteacher, Dr. Richardson. I spent 40 years teaching children about kindness, respect, and treating everyone equally. I can't stand by and watch my own son destroy those values and hurt people. I just can't. Thomas was skeptical when Maya told him about the call. It could be a setup. The defense might be trying to get information from you. I don't think so. You didn't hear her voice. Even if she's sincere, are you sure you want to engage with this? It's going to be emotionally complicated. Maya thought about it for a long time. Finally, she said, I want to meet her. They met at a quiet coffee shop in a town halfway between their homes. Catherine was a small woman in her late 60s with gray hair and kind eyes that were red from crying. She brought a folder with her. These are Derek's school photos, she said, sliding them across the table. I want you to see the boy he used to be. Not to make you feel sorry for him, but so you understand that hate isn't something people are born with. It's something they learn. Maya looked at the photos. A gap-toothed first grader, a teenager in a debate team uniform, a young man graduating from college, his arm around his mother, both of them smiling. What happened to that person? Maya asked softly. Life got hard and he looked for someone to blame, and there were people online ready to tell him exactly who to blame. People who made him feel powerful by making others feel small. Catherine wiped her eyes. I've reported those websites. I've begged platforms to shut them down. But they multiply faster than anyone can stop them. They talked for 2 hours. Catherine shared things that would later prove crucial to the lawsuit. She knew about complaints against Derek that the company had buried. She had emails her son had sent her, bragging about how his uncle made sure he could never get fired. She had overheard phone calls between Derek and company executives. I'll testify, Catherine said. Whatever you need, I'll do it. Even if it means going against your own son. Catherine looked Maya directly in the eyes. I love my son. I will always love my son. But love doesn't mean protecting someone from the consequences of their actions. Maybe this is what he needs to finally wake up, and more importantly, it's the right thing to do. When Maya left that coffee shop, she felt something she hadn't expected. Not quite forgiveness, but something softer than the rage she had been carrying. Catherine couldn't undo what Derek had done. But her courage to stand up and speak the truth meant something. The news that Derek's own mother was cooperating with the lawsuit spread quickly. Public opinion shifted even more. People started discussing not just corporate racism, but how people become radicalized. Catherine began speaking publicly about her experience, warning other parents about the warning signs she had missed. Derek, meanwhile, responded to his mother's betrayal with anger. He posted on social media calling her a traitor, which only made him look worse. His uncle, the investor, tried to distance himself from the whole situation. The company's lawyers scrambled to do damage control. Elite Sky Services offered a settlement, $2 million and a private apology. Thomas brought the offer to Maya. It's a low offer. We can get more. But I wanted you to see it. Maya didn't hesitate. No, this goes to trial. They need to admit publicly what they did. Other companies need to see that discrimination has real consequences. Take it to trial, Thomas smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. But the case took an unexpected turn. A week before the trial was set to begin, federal investigators revealed something explosive. Elite Sky Services wasn't just guilty of discrimination. They had been falsifying safety reports, cutting corners on maintenance, and bribing inspectors. The discrimination case had opened the door to a much larger investigation. The company's CEO was forced to resign. The board of directors faced criminal charges. What had started as Maya standing up for her dignity had exposed corruption that went far beyond racism. Catherine called Maya again. I heard the news. My brother Derek's uncle, he's being investigated too. Our whole family is falling apart. I'm sorry, Maya said, and she meant it, don't be. Sometimes things have to fall apart before they can be rebuilt the right way. That's what you're doing, Dr. Richardson. You're not just fighting for yourself. You're burning down a system that was rotten from the inside. Maya looked out her window at the setting sun. She thought about all the patients she had saved over the years, all the hearts she had restarted. Sometimes, she realized, healing required breaking things open first. Sometimes you had to cut through scar tissue to get to the healthy tissue underneath. I hope you're right, Maya said quietly. I know I am, Catherine replied. And when this is over, whatever happens, know that you did something that mattered. You refuse to be silent. That takes more courage than most people have. As Maya hung up the phone, she felt the weight of what was coming. The trial would be difficult. The testimony would be painful. But for the first time since that morning at the airport, she felt something other than anger and humiliation. She felt hope. The courtroom was packed on the first day of trial. Maya sat at the plaintiff's table in a gray suit, her hands folded in front of her. She had performed surgeries where one wrong move could mean death, but somehow this felt more nerve-wracking. In an operating room, she had control. Here, she had to trust the system. A system that hadn't always been fair to people who looked like her. Thomas gave his opening statement with quiet power. He walked the jury through everything. The booking, the payment, the confirmation, then the suspicion, the questioning, the humiliation. He showed them the video, even though millions had seen it online. Watching it in that silent courtroom felt different. You could hear people shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Dr. Richardson did everything right, Thomas said, looking each juror in the eye. She had every document, every proof of payment, every piece of identification. And still she was treated like a criminal. Why, we all know why. Because Derek Morrison looked at her and made an assumption based on the color of her skin. And Elite Sky Services, the company that employed him, had been allowing him to make those assumptions for years. The defense attorney was a sharp woman named Ms. Peterson, who wore expensive suits and had a reputation for winning impossible cases. Her opening statement painted a different picture. This case is about a misunderstanding that has been blown out of proportion. Derek Morrison was doing his job, following company protocol to verify high-value transactions. Was he overly cautious? Perhaps was he rude? Maybe, but discrimination? That's a serious charge that requires serious proof. Maya watched the jury's faces. Some seemed sympathetic. Others looked skeptical. A middle-aged black woman in the second row had tears in her eyes during Thomas's statement. An older white man in the front row had his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. The first week of testimony was brutal. Maya had to take the stand and relive every moment of that day. Ms. Peterson cross-examined her aggressively, trying to poke holes in her story. Had she been argumentative? Had she raised her voice? Had she done anything that might have caused Derek to feel threatened? I was a paying customer showing my documentation, Maya said firmly. The only thing I did wrong was exist in a space where someone decided I didn't belong. Ms. Peterson held up a printout. Dr. Richardson, isn't it true that Elite Sky Services has served hundreds of black clients without incident? I don't know how many black clients they've served. What I know is that 6 others came forward with similar experiences. 6 people out of thousands of flights. Doesn't that suggest this is an isolated incident rather than a pattern? Thomas objected. Your Honor, the defense is asking the witness to speculate about cases she has no knowledge of. Sustained. Move on, counselor. But Ms. Peterson had made her point to the jury. She was planting doubt, suggesting this was being blown out of proportion. Then came the testimony from the other victims. Trevor, the businessman, described being detained for 45 minutes while his colleagues boarded without question. Nicole told how she was asked if someone else made her reservation, as if she couldn't afford it herself. Each story was similar. Each person was professional, well-dressed, and had all their documentation. And each was black. The defense tried to explain away each incident. Trevor's flight really did have maintenance issues. Nicole's name had a typo in the system. Reasonable explanations if you looked at them individually, but together, they formed a pattern that was impossible to ignore. On the 8th day, Catherine Morrison took the stand. The courtroom went completely silent. Here was Derek's own mother, about to testify against her son and the company that had protected him. Catherine wore a simple blue dress. Her hands shook as she was sworn in, but her voice was steady. Thomas approached her gently. "Mrs. Morrison, can you tell us about your relationship with your son? I love my son very much. I raised him to be kind, to treat everyone with respect. But somewhere along the way he changed. He became someone I didn't recognize. Can you tell us what you know about complaints made against your son while he worked at Elite Sky Services?" Catherine pulled out a notebook. She had come prepared. "Derek told me about 3 different incidents where black clients complained about him. He laughed about them, said they were being too sensitive. He told me his uncle made sure the complaints never went anywhere." Ms. Peterson jumped up. "Objection. This is hearsay." "Your Honor," Thomas said calmly. "The witness is testifying to statements made by her son directly to her. That's an admission against interest, which is an exception to hearsay." The judge nodded. "Overruled. Continue." Catherine described emails Derek had shown her joking about suspicious clients. She talked about a family dinner where Derek's uncle, the investor, had laughed about keeping Derek employed despite complaints. He said good employees are hard to find and family looks out for family. When Ms. Peterson cross-examined Catherine, she tried to be gentle. Attacking a mother testifying against her son wouldn't look good to the jury, but she still had to try. "Mrs. Morrison, isn't it possible you misunderstood these conversations? That your son was joking or exaggerating?" Catherine looked at her steadily. "I'm 68 years old. I was a teacher for 40 years. I know the difference between a joke and a confession. My son believed he could treat people however he wanted because his uncle protected him, and he was right, until Dr. Richardson refused to stay silent." The whisper of approval that went through the courtroom was barely audible, but Maya heard it. She glanced at the jury. The black woman was nodding slightly. Even the man with crossed arms had unfolded them. The breakthrough came during the testimony of a former Elite Sky Services employee named Rita. She had worked in customer service and had processed many of the complaints that were filed. Thomas displayed internal emails on the courtroom screens. "Can you read this email for us, Ms. Rita?" Rita adjusted her glasses. "It's from the operations manager to the customer service team. It says, 'Going forward, any complaints regarding Derek Morrison should be forwarded directly to me for handling. Do not process them through normal channels.' And what does that mean in plain terms? It means they were burying complaints, creating a special process to make sure Derek's complaints never went on his official record." Thomas showed email after email, complaints that were marked as resolved when they weren't. Refunds given with confidentiality agreements attached. A deliberate, systematic effort to hide Derek's behavior. Ms. Peterson tried to spin it. "This shows the company took complaints seriously and handled them at the highest level." But Rita wasn't having it. "No, ma'am. This shows they knew they had a problem and chose to hide it instead of fix it. I quit because of it. I couldn't be part of that anymore." During a recess, Maya stepped outside for air. Catherine was standing in the hallway alone. Other witnesses weren't supposed to interact with plaintiffs, but Catherine wasn't officially a witness anymore. Her testimony was done. "How are you holding up?" Catherine asked. "I should be asking you that. You just testified against your son." Catherine smiled sadly. "I testified for what's right. There's a difference. Derek called me last night. Told me I was dead to him. I'm so sorry. Don't be. I'd rather be dead to my son than dead to my conscience." Catherine looked toward the courtroom doors. "You're going to win this, you know. I can feel it. Even if we win the case, can we win the bigger fight? Can we actually change anything?" Catherine put a gentle hand on Maya's arm. "You already have. You've made people think. You've made companies scared. You've shown other victims that speaking up matters. That's not nothing." The trial continued for another week. Expert witnesses testified about implicit bias and discrimination patterns. Financial experts showed how Elite Sky Services had prioritized profit over ethics. Character witnesses described Maya's reputation and career. Derek himself was called to testify. He wore a suit that looked too big for him. He had lost weight, his face gaunt and tired. Under oath, he admitted to the emails. He claimed they were taken out of context, that he wasn't really racist, that he was just being careful. "You called security on Dr. Richardson within 20 minutes of her arrival," Thomas said. "But you checked in her 3 white colleagues in under 2 minutes. Can you explain the difference in treatment?" Derek stammered. I had concerns about verification. What concerns specifically? I don't remember exactly. You don't remember. This was just a few months ago. You called security on a paying customer and you don't remember why? Derek's lawyer tried to object, but the damage was done. His testimony was evasive, unconvincing. Even jurors who might have been skeptical could see he was hiding something. The closing arguments came on a Friday. Thomas was eloquent and passionate. This case is simple. Dr. Richardson paid for a service. She had every right to receive that service. She was denied that service because of the color of her skin. Elite Sky Services not only employed the man who discriminated against her, but they protected him, enabled him, and allowed him to do it again and again. That's not just discrimination. That's institutional racism, and it's time for them to be held accountable. Ms. Peterson's closing was professional but felt hollow. She had the harder job defending the indefensible. We all agree what happened to Dr. Richardson was unfortunate. But unfortunate doesn't mean illegal. My clients made mistakes in judgment, but mistakes aren't the same as malicious discrimination. The jury deliberated for 2 days. Maya couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. She kept replaying every moment of the trial in her head. Had they done enough? Had the jury believed them? On Monday afternoon, her phone rang. It was Thomas. The jury's back. Get to the courthouse. Maya's heart pounded as she took her seat. The jury filed in, their faces unreadable. The foreperson, the black woman who had been crying during opening statements, stood up. In the case of Richardson versus Elite Sky Services, on the count of racial discrimination, we find in favor of the plaintiff. We award damages in the amount of $12 million. The courtroom erupted. Maya felt Thomas grip her hand. She felt tears streaming down her face. Across the aisle, the Elite Sky Services lawyer sat in stunned silence. But Maya wasn't crying from joy alone. She was crying from exhaustion, from relief, from the weight of everything she had been carrying. She had won. They had won. As she left the courthouse, reporters surrounded her. She paused on the steps, the same steps where she had announced the lawsuit months ago. How do you feel, Dr. Richardson? She took a breath. Vindicated. But this isn't just my victory. This is for everyone who's been treated as less than they are because of how they look. Change is possible. Justice is possible, but only if we're brave enough to fight for it. That night, Maya sat in her living room, the verdict still feeling surreal. Her phone buzzed with messages of congratulations. But the one that meant the most was from Catherine. Thank you for giving me the chance to do the right thing. My son may never forgive me, but I'll never regret it. Maya typed back, thank you for your courage. It mattered more than you know. The $12 million settlement sat in Maya's bank account like a question mark. She stared at the number on her computer screen, still not quite believing it was real. After legal fees and taxes, she would keep about $8 million. More money than she had ever imagined having. Money that came from one of the worst experiences of her life. Her mother called every day with suggestions. Buy a house on the beach. Take a year off. Travel the world. Her brother thought she should invest it all. Her colleagues congratulated her and went back to their normal lives. But Maya couldn't move forward, not yet. The money felt heavy, like it came with a responsibility she hadn't asked for but couldn't ignore. She met with Thomas at his office 3 weeks after the verdict. Elite Sky Services had filed for bankruptcy. The company was being dismantled, sold off in pieces. Derek had moved out of state, his social media accounts deleted, trying to disappear from public view. His uncle faced criminal charges for the safety violations and was fighting to stay out of prison. You won, Thomas said, pouring them both coffee. You can rest now. Can I, though? Maya set down her cup without drinking. 6 other people came forward because of me. How many others experienced the same thing but stayed silent? How many are still experiencing it right now with other companies? Thomas studied her carefully. What are you thinking? I'm thinking this money should mean something more than just compensation for what I went through. I'm thinking about all the times I've been the only black woman in a room full of pilots or in a business class cabin or at a medical conference. I'm thinking about all the young black kids who dream of careers in aviation but never see anyone who looks like them. She pulled out a folder. She had been working on this for days, staying up late after her hospital shifts, sketching out ideas. I want to start a foundation. Scholarships for black students who want careers in aviation. Pilots, mechanics, air traffic controllers, all of it. but also a database where people can report discrimination in private travel services, a place where complaints don't just disappear into a company's internal system. Thomas leaned back in his chair, a smile spreading across his face. You want to turn your pain into something that helps others. Isn't that what doctors do? We see suffering and we try to prevent it from happening to someone else. They worked on the foundation structure for months. Maya decided to donate $10 million, keeping $2 million for her own future and to help the other victims who had come forward. The Clear Skies Foundation launched on a Tuesday morning with a press conference that made national news. Maya stood at the podium, more nervous than she had been in the courtroom. When I was denied boarding that day, I felt powerless. This foundation is about giving power back. Power to students who deserve opportunities. Power to consumers who deserve respect. Power to anyone who's ever been made to feel like they don't belong. The first year was chaotic. Maya was still working full-time as a surgeon, now trying to run a foundation on top of it. She hired a small staff, people who believed in the mission. They awarded 40 scholarships in the first year to students pursuing aviation careers. They built a reporting system that logged complaints and tracked patterns across different travel companies. The database became more powerful than Maya had imagined. Other victims of discrimination started reporting their experiences. The foundation would verify the complaints and, when patterns emerged, would notify regulatory agencies and the media. 3 companies reformed their policies after the foundation exposed their discrimination patterns. 2 executives were fired. It was working, but the work was exhausting. Maya found herself sleeping 4 hours a night, running between the hospital and foundation meetings, answering emails at midnight. Her colleagues worried about her. Her mother begged her to slow down. You can't save everyone, her mother said. Maybe not, Maya replied. But I can try to save someone. Catherine became an unexpected ally. She started speaking at high schools and community centers about radicalization, about the warning signs she had missed with Derek, about how hate spreads online. She volunteered with the foundation, helping to review scholarship applications. She and Maya had coffee once a month, an unlikely friendship born from terrible circumstances. Any word from Derek? Maya asked during one of their meetings. Catherine shook her head. He sent me a letter last month. First contact in over a year. He's working at a warehouse somewhere in Nevada. He said he's trying to figure out who he is without all the anger. She paused. He didn't apologize, not really. But he acknowledged that he hurt people. It's a start, I guess. Do you think people can change? I have to believe they can. Otherwise, what's the point of any of this? Catherine gestured around them at the foundation office at the photos of scholarship recipients on the walls. You're changing things, Maya. You're changing systems, changing lives. If systems can change, then people can too. 2 years after the verdict, Maya was invited to testify before Congress. They were holding hearings on discrimination in private services, and her case had become the centerpiece example. She flew to Washington, ironically on a commercial flight in economy class. She had been offered private travel but declined. She wasn't ready for that yet. The hearing room was intimidating, filled with senators and cameras and serious-looking people with briefcases. Maya wore her doctor's coat again. It had become her armor, a reminder of who she was beyond this story. She told her story once more, but this time she focused on solutions. We need federal protections that explicitly cover private travel services. We need mandatory reporting of discrimination complaints. We need penalties severe enough that companies think twice before protecting employees who discriminate. And we need to make it easier for victims to come forward without fear of retaliation. A senator from Georgia asked her, Dr. Richardson, some people might say you got your justice. You won your case, you got your settlement. Why are you still fighting? Maya looked at him directly. Because justice for one person isn't justice at all. It's just a temporary relief. Real justice means changing the system so the next person doesn't have to fight the same battle I did. Real justice means my story becomes impossible to repeat. The hearing led to new legislation. The Private Services Anti-Discrimination Act passed 8 months later. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Companies now had to report discrimination complaints to federal agencies. Penalties for systematic discrimination were increased. Victims had more legal protections. Maya watched the bill signing from her office at the hospital. A patient's life had just been saved on her operating table. She was still in her scrubs, exhausted but satisfied. She had saved a life in the OR that morning. And in a different way, she had helped save future victims from the humiliation she had endured. The foundation grew. By year 3, they had helped 150 students. A young black woman named Keisha, one of their first scholarship recipients, became a commercial pilot. She sent Maya a photo of herself in her uniform, standing in front of a plane. "Because of you, I'm living my dream," the caption read. Maya hung the photo in her office right next to her medical degree. Some days, when the work felt overwhelming, she would look at it and remember why it all mattered. Elite Sky Services was fully dissolved by the 4th year. The bankruptcy proceedings had finally concluded. The assets were sold, the offices closed, the brand extinct. But from its ashes, something interesting happened. A group of black entrepreneurs bought some of the old routes and equipment and started a new charter company. They called it Equity Air, and they made diversity and inclusion the core of their business model. They asked Maya to be on their advisory board. She accepted. The first time she flew with them, she felt a strange mixture of emotions. She was back in a private terminal showing her ID boarding a small jet, but this time the staff was diverse. The pilot was a black woman. The service was impeccable, professional, and warm. As the plane took off, Maya looked out the window at the clouds below. She thought about that day at Teterboro Airport, about how powerless she had felt. She thought about Catherine's courage, about Thomas's dedication, about all the people who had supported her. She thought about Derek, too, working in a warehouse, trying to figure out who he was. She didn't forgive him. Maybe she never would. But she hoped that somewhere in his journey he was learning that hate only destroys, that supremacy is an illusion, that we all share the same sky. The flight attendant brought her a glass of water. "Dr. Richardson, it's an honor to have you aboard. I read about what you did. You're the reason my daughter believes she can be a pilot one day." Maya smiled genuinely this time. "Tell your daughter to apply for our scholarship when she's ready. We'll help her get there." 5 years after the incident, Maya reduced her hours at the hospital to focus more on the foundation. She was 47 now, with some gray in her hair and laugh lines around her eyes. The foundation had helped over 300 students. The discrimination database had processed thousands of reports and helped dozens of victims get justice. She gave a speech at a civil rights conference, the same conference she had been trying to reach that day when she was denied boarding. The irony wasn't lost on her. "I never wanted to be an activist," she told the crowd. "I just wanted to be a doctor, to save lives, to do my job. But sometimes life chooses your path for you. Sometimes a moment of injustice becomes an opportunity for change, not because we want it to, but because we refuse to let it be meaningless." The speech ended with a standing ovation. Afterward, a young black girl approached her shyly, her mother standing behind her. "Dr. Richardson, I want to be a heart surgeon like you, and I want to help people like you do." Both ways, Maya knelt down to the girl's level. "What's your name?" "Angela." "Well, Angela, let me tell you something. You're going to face people who doubt you, people who think you don't belong in certain spaces. But you belong anywhere you have the courage to show up. Remember that." The girl hugged her, and Maya felt tears threatening. This was it. This was why she had fought. Not for the money, not for the fame, not even for her own vindication. For this girl and thousands like her who needed to see that fighting back was possible, that dignity was non-negotiable, that justice, while slow and imperfect, could still be achieved. That night, Maya sat on her balcony looking up at the stars. Somewhere up there, planes were crossing the sky, carrying people to their destinations. Some of those planes might have pilots or mechanics or staff who got their start because of her foundation. Some of those passengers might travel without fear of discrimination because of the laws she had helped pass. She had boarded that private jet 5 years ago just wanting to get to a conference. Instead, she had started a movement. She had turned her worst day into countless other people's best opportunities. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from Catherine. "Saw your speech online. You're changing the world one student at a time. Proud to know you." Maya texted back a simple heart emoji, something she rarely did. But today felt like a day for small gestures of connection. The sky was clear. The stars were bright, and for the first time since that terrible day at Teterboro Airport, Maya felt truly free, not because she had won a lawsuit or started a foundation or changed laws, but because she had taken her pain and transformed it into purpose. She had refused to be silenced, refused to accept that things couldn't change, refused to let injustice have the last word. And that, she realized, was the real victory.